Hello and welcome to my channel, Bevvy with Beth. I'm Beth and here I talk all about polycystic ovarian syndrome, the symptoms, how to cope with them and how my personal journey with PCOS is going. So if that sounds like something that you would be interested in, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below to catch my videos every week. And today we're going to be talking about sleep. So I have got my tea brewing here. I'm just going to let that sit for a bit, and it is one of my favourite teas. It's a bit more autumnal now, and so this kind of smoky flavour is just one of my favourites. So I have this. Let's bring. So that's what I'm drinking. So grab yourself a drink, and like I said, we're going to be talking about sleep. I mentioned on my Instagram at Bevvy with Beth that I was struggling a couple of weeks ago, and part of that struggle both led me to and was fed by a lack of sleep. And I do have a video all about my kind of bedtime and my morning routines and how I kind of help myself to get the most or the best sleep that I can. And I just found that I got out of my routine. I allowed myself to get out of my routine. And of course, that just makes everything perpetually worse. Being tired kind of perpetuates everything. So I wanted to talk about what I was struggling with, and then also how, the kind of 3 steps that I did to get back to a regular sleep routine. So first, I'm going to talk about what I was struggling with. So I'm still learning my cycle and how that is going, like what that looks like, how my weeks differ as I progress through my cycle, and I'm tracking that on Instagram. So definitely check out, if you're not already following me there, I will be keeping you up to date as to how my cycle is going and what I'm experiencing each week and what changes are happening. My Instagram is turning into a little bit of my cycle diary, just that one aspect with the IGTV. It's my cycle diary, and so you can kind of track that with me and we can try and identify some patterns together. It was the beginning of this cycle that I'm in now. I was struggling a lot with my moods being really up and down, feeling very emotional. And that kind of led me to not having any self-discipline. I wasn't in the mood to obey even myself. And I ended up doing things like either scrolling on Facebook or watching TV series and like just letting the next episode continually play and not having the self-control to be like, no, I actually need to go to bed now. So then I was up, anywhere between midnight and 2 o'clock in the morning, which of course made it difficult to get up in the morning. And it affected not just my ability then to be better and, the next evening, my eating habits. So then obviously the next day, not having had any sleep, all your body wants is sugar, and all my body wants is sugar anyway. And so I'm already battling that. I'm trying to do a keto diet, and then on top of that, I'm not having any sleep. So what that meant was I didn't do any meal prep. So I was trying to find the energy to cook a meal that was keto, and it just didn't happen. I got to a point where I realised it was also then making my mental health worse. That because I'm not getting the sleep, because I'm eating too much sugar, that it's actually making everything worse. And so I sat myself down and right, this weekend we're sorting everything out. So I also wanted to talk about the things that I did in order to get myself back into a healthy routine. So the first thing that I did to start getting myself back into a normal sleep routine was to have set times. Because I hadn't been going to bed at a set time, or I'd been going to bed much later than I would normally, I then also wasn't pushing myself to get up in the mornings, which meant that my morning routine was also off, and it kind of, like, as I said, led into everything else. So I knew that in order to be able to get up in the morning, I needed to go to bed at a certain time. And I also knew that just because I'd taken myself to bed at that time didn't mean I'd fall asleep. And so it might look like then getting up in the morning, it would be a good idea to spend an extra hour in bed to make up for the time that I wasn't sleeping. But I also knew that then that would mean I'd oversleep and then I wouldn't want to go to bed early that evening. So I had to kind of go through that pain of getting up early in the morning, having not had much sleep, in order to get to the next evening when I could then go to bed early, get some sleep and wake up early and start it back on that positive motion. It wasn't about needing the sleep, it was about needing the routine. So I knew I had to be a bit hard on myself in this beginning part in order to get to a point where it wasn't difficult to get up anymore. So I set myself a bedtime and a get up time and I stuck to that. Reducing my screen time before my bedtime, have everything set anyway to block out the blue lights, to go onto an easy eye mode, all those kind of things. But it's not just the light that stimulates me, it is also obviously the content as well. And so I find there are TV shows and there's content on YouTube and Instagram, social media, that stimulates me and gets me thinking about things, not necessarily in a negative way. Sometimes it can almost be like too positive, especially Instagram. I have some really inspirational people on Instagram, and then I'm like, oh, I get all these ideas, and I'm like, oh yeah, and then I can do this, and I could create that, and I could make this, and it's like, no, now is not the time to be planning all of your life. You need sleep. Otherwise, you're never going to accomplish anything. So sometimes it's a stimulation to motivate me to get going and do things at a time when I should be winding down, slowing down, and getting some sleep. So I stopped watching TV and put my phone down a good 2 hours before I go to bed. So it was nothing after 8 p.m, being super strict this time. And the last thing that I did, focusing a bit more on exercise. I've been a bit stuck. I don't know about you guys, but I'm just getting a bit bored. It's more kind of the routine of it. So I'd shifted around what time of day I was doing it to try and liven it up a bit. And I was just feeling really stagnant. And then when I wasn't sleeping, of course, I did drop down my exercise because I was exhausted. I didn't need to do more exercise. That would have just risen my cortisol levels and would have made me feel worse. So I kind of dropped off what exercise I was doing. I lowered it right down. So I knew that I needed to revamp that because there would be energy then that I was having, especially when I got past the pain threshold of having to get up when I wasn't sleeping. And when I started sleeping again, if I wasn't exercising, I would have too much energy and then I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, I wouldn't be able to go to sleep. So I knew that I needed to also include a form of exercise that would be tiring enough to keep my energies low for sleep, but at the same time would be interesting and something that'd be a bit more sustainable. So it's not like new, but I just tried to do it a bit differently to kind of refresh myself and get back into that exercise to burn off the energy that I was having. And what that means, of course, is that now I can be a lot more lax. I can watch TV before I go to bed without having to shut it off really early. I have been able to get like full night's sleep, so I'm not waking up in the middle of the night. I'm getting a full night's sleep, which means I'm getting up in the morning, which means I'm now pushed my yoga back to first thing in the morning before I start work, and then having a walk after work, and everything's kind of fallen back in. I'm getting again between 8 and 9 hours a night, which is what I personally need. Eating habits much better. I also then had a weekend where I had nothing else going on, so it meant I could do a load of food prep, which means my evenings are a bit freer, which means doing things like getting the exercise done when it doesn't feel that I'm not feeling that motivated, and making good food choices without having to find energy to do all of the cooking and the cleaning afterwards. All of that has become a lot easier. So I've fallen back into a much healthier nighttime routine, getting good amounts of sleep. So I wanted to share that with you because I think it's something that we all struggle with. And obviously these tips might not help everybody. You might not be able to do exactly the same as I've done and have a great sleep routine, but I definitely hope that there are a couple of things there that you can incorporate, or some things that you can try to see if it helps out with sleep. But definitely check out my other videos where I talk about the importance of sleep and what I do in order to help my sleep to be the best that it possibly can be. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Everything perpetually worse. Being hungry. I am hungry. But that's not what this video is about. Brilliant.
Hey, I wish you could see yourself just sitting there on my chair.